to climb Rakaposhi Mountain, 25,550 feet high, a mountain which had not been climbed by man before. The expedition was privately organized by the undergraduates of Cambridge who came to Pakistan in the summer of 1954, and along with Pakistani members who joined it, it made an attempt to climb this mountain. This is their story. It was a poor man's expedition. It was entirely a private enterprise, and they didn't have many funds either to support them. The expeditions came, part of it by road and part by sea, assembled at Karachi and moved to Rawalpindi. We follow the course of the river all the way, and it's a pretty hazardous flight. In the distance is Nanda Parbat, a world famous mountain which was climbed by the Germans in 1954. We're getting Gilgit, our destination. You see small villages tucked in the mountains all the way. The life is pretty hard for these people. Gilgit Airport is a very small one with a river on one side and mountains on the others. And these aeroplanes just manage to get in and get out. Sometimes these aeroplanes can't even get in, and the arrival of the aeroplanes is always an occasion for celebrations. The local dignitaries, friends, relatives, they all come and receive the passengers who have arrived, and there is a bit of a ceremony. Generally the guard turns out and is received by the dignitary and many other local officials who have come to meet the party. It's a great sight to watch the aeroplane arriving and leaving. The expedition moves to the house of the resident, what you may call the governor of the area. He has a beautiful house with a lot of fruits and flowers at this time of the year. He is a gentleman in the middle with a white shirt, surrounded by members of the expedition. On his left is George Band, who's one of the finest mountaineers, and on the extreme left with the camera is Dr. Tisa, the leader of the expedition. We were entertained by him, and as a matter of fact we stayed there at his house. The flowers at this time of the year are in full blossom, and it's extremely picturesque sight around the governor's house. Gilgit Bazaar is world famous. It is a famous caravan route to Kashgar, Central Asia. Now, of course, no longer available to the free world because it's behind the Iron Curtain in Red China. But the bazaar is still full of people, tribes, and men from many parts of Central Asia. The expedition starts from here on its way to Baltistan. This is the Gilgit River, and the bridge is just wide enough for a jeep to go across it. And the road from there onward is part of the way, dry riverbed. From here the road goes up into the hills, and most of this road is made by hand. There's no machinery available, and when there's a big rock like this, they go underneath it, as you notice. The road follows the HUNZA River. There's a mountain on one side and the deep, fast-flowing river on the other side. But these drivers are pretty good in driving over such hazardous roads. And in many places there's a danger of falling rocks. River, not Gilgit River. Big speed, which is rather frightening for those who are not used to this kind of roads. And you find often the driver has one foot hanging outside in case something happens. He's ready to jump off. Fortunately, such things don't happen often. In the distance you see Rakaposhi, the object of the expedition, one of the famous mountains in this part of the region. And this is another type of the bridge used commonly for crossing the Hunza River. You see it's being operated by hand. The bucket carries hardly 2 persons at a time. It's a pretty slow job, but nothing better is available. In due course, it is hoped that a bridge will be put across here. These Hunza Kotis and Nagar people are extremely helpful and willing. Roger, Charley and Fraser are riding in the bucket. Fraser, 2 years later, was killed in Nepal in a mountaineering expedition. Roger Charley nowadays lives in New York. In the distance we now see Charley, which is the summer capital of Mir of Nagar. And that's the view of a glacier showing the way up to the peak Rakaposhi in the distance. This is another type of bridge crossing from Nagar state to Hunza. The Mir of Hunza sent us horses and a party to receive us and escort us to Baltistan, the capital of Hunza. The beginning of the road is what you see, and what a rugged road too. When there's a storm or a landslide, the road disappears right down into the river, which you see in the distance. And many people prefer to walk instead of riding a horse, and I don't blame them either, for the hazardous ride you may have to face unless you are used to it. The local people don't mind, they're quite good at it. They will even gallop on this kind of road, but the members of the expedition were rather frightened and they preferred to walk, and so you see the horse being led by the man who brought it. Now we are nearing Baltistan, the capital of state. Every inch of available land is used for irrigation. The loads were carried on the back by Hunza Kotis, and these boxes were made in England, each weighing 60 pounds, serially numbered. These men would do about 10-15 miles a day very happily. Hunza is very fertile, and so is Nagar. But Nagar has more water and Hunza hasn't got the water. These are the two states on each side of the Hunza River, which divides the two territories. Now you see another kind of bridge. One of the members crossing it, and many a times there are some planks missing. And it's not very easy to cross the river if you're not used to it, with missing planks in the bridge. and there is one member who's having some difficulty in doing it. And there's always a man at the far end waiting for him in case he gets into difficulties. The water is pretty fast at this time, rushing from the mountain tops. The local people are so used to it that they can walk almost with their eyes shut. In the distance is the Golden Peak, still not climbed by man, and it's over 24,000 feet high. It's called Golden Peak because the sun, when it shines against it, gives it a golden effect. The expedition is now arriving at Nagar, the capital of Nagar state, where we were invited by the Mir to be his guest and to attend the harvest festival, which is called Ginani. This is held every year to celebrate the harvest festival. It is like Thanksgiving in United States. They must get their crops through, collect the fruit, cut the grass, store up for the winter. They have a long winter when the whole country is covered with deep snow, and they don't go down into the plains but stay in their homes, shut in with their animal and cattle. The arrival of the party was always a great event in the village. Then all the boys and girls and the elders will come and meet the party. School will close and the local band will play music. In the distance, the flag represents the 5 valleys which are in the state. This is the Mir himself, a very fine horseman, a first-class gentleman, and a great sportsman, and a most hospitable host. The villagers are busy drying fruit. The country is, this time of the year, has tremendous amount of fruit, which is dried in the summer for use in the winter. They grow barley, rice, wheat, corn, all done by hand. No machinery available, and not much use for it either because the holdings are very small. It's a pretty slow process, but they don't waste anything. This is the way land has been farmed for thousands and thousands and thousands of years from the dawn of history. And you see this in most parts of the world. There's not much difference whether you see it here or in Japan or in parts of China or many other countries around the globe. The cattle is rather small. It's understandable. There's not much to graze. They're pretty hard worked. The threshing is done by the village as a combined effort of the community, because it's not easy for one man to do it. So they all muck in and help one another. Everything is used, either by the man or by the animals or as a fuel. Nothing is wasted. And they can't afford to waste anything with the small amount of land that is available. Nagar is self-sufficient in food. In fact, they have a little bit of surplus which they sell across the river to people in Hunza who do not grow enough food for themselves and have to rely on supplies from Nagar. There's tremendous amount of fruit grown in this area, apples, apricots, plums, grapes, figs, almonds, walnuts, cherries. And if you get hungry, you just stop, shake the tree, and have a good meal and walk off. No one will charge you, and everyone is welcome to an orchard to help himself when he's hungry. This is the way it's been done. They have so much fruit that they even give it to their animals to feed them. What they can't eat, they store up for the winter, which they must do. But it's delicious fruit. And you find fruit trees all along the roads, everywhere. Nagar is much more fertile than Hunza because they get more water. All the glaciers are on the side in Nagar and not in Hunza, which is dry. The Mir has a beautiful palace high up on top of the ridge with a commanding view of the valley. They don't have any professional fruit pickers. All that you do is make one or two boys to climb the tree and shake it hard, and the rest are busy collecting it. While they're collecting, they're also helping themselves, eating it, so that Mama won't have to cook anything. The fruit drying is a peculiar process. They take the stone out and put the fruit in the hot sun to dry, which can be packed up later. But they do something else too. They take the stone, break it, and take the kernel out and put it back in the fruit so that you can swallow the fruit without any difficulty, any danger of swallowing the stone. They are putting it back into the fruit. Apricots mostly, but delicious. I wonder if a machine will ever be invented which can do all this without touching by hand. This will get the juice out. This is another hand-operated press. You see the house rooftops covered with fruit for drying. The village workshop is pretty mobile. The man will come and put it down outside the village, operate for a day or two, and then move elsewhere where there's work for him. The economy is run mostly on barter system. He doesn't take any money, but would prefer to take something in kind. And here's a hair comb being made using toes and fingers. The man in the distance is making a bow. Archery is very popular in this part of the world, and you see little boy and grown-up men all the time walking about with bows and arrows. I wonder if many people will recognize what this man has. There's a pitchfork. And no operation is complete without a smithy. The bellows are made of goat skin. The weaver is a pretty busy man at this time of the year. She has to make blankets, even carpets, rough kind, for use in the winter. He even has some patterns and designs, sometimes from magazines from the United States and other countries. And they don't make a bad job of it either. You can order what you want. It'll take some time for him to make it, but he'll make a try anyhow. There's a lot of wool available, as they have plenty of sheep, goat, yaks in this part of the world. Sometime he'll have his own design, copying some animal or tree or something he has seen or taken fancy to. The shoemaking industry is very much a one-man affair, and this man will come and sit outside your house and make a pair of shoes for you from the local hide and skins which are available. It doesn't take very long to get a pair of shoes made according to the size and design required. It doesn't charge much either for it. In most cases, it's a system which prevails. There's a fine pair of shoes available.